Hey everybody, I'm Angie with Smokeless Smoking, and today I'm going to show you how to refill and prime a DCT. It's a dual coil Cartomizer tank. This is our newest, hottest item. It's really great because we have two different versions. This one is 3 milliliter and the larger one is 6 milliliter. This one works really great with our XL batteries, and the 6 mil is really great with our variable voltage mods. So basically there's three parts to these tanks. There's the center part, which is the Cartomizer. It's silver. Then there's the tank itself, which has two kind of rubbery plastic ends, and then a plastic tank. It's a thick plastic. And then it's got a drip tip on the end, which some of you may already be using with your standard atomizer setups. So basically you pull that drip tip off the top when it's new. That'll expose the sponge on the inside. That center core area is where the air flows through the device, and you never want to put any liquid directly down that hole. That can actually interrupt the airway and either cause it to hit poorly or break it. So how you're going to fill it is you're going to take your drip tip, use it as a tool, kind of flip it upside down, use it as a tool to push the Cartomizer down. At the bottom or near the bottom of the Cartomizer, you're going to notice a small hole. That's the intake hole where the air drags up into the sponge from the inside of the tank. So you want that to be below the tank area when you fill it. You're going to take your 503E liquid and then hold the tank kind of at eye level so that you can see exactly where your liquid's going to be sure that it doesn't get down the center area. And you're actually going to run it down the walls of the tank, on the outside of the Cartomizer, not on the inside. Now you can fill it all the way up to a safe level, meaning not going over the top edge of the silver Cartomizer in the center, or you can put just at least half a tank's worth of liquid in it to prime the interior the first time. So I've got about that much, a little over halfway filled. Then I'm going to put it down on the table and kind of just push this part back up through this part. So get it on a flat surface, kind of wiggle it back through to the top so that everything's flush again, and you can see that metal edge over the top. Then you're going to take your drip tip, put it back on the way that it's supposed to be, put the rubber washer down, and then before you put this on a battery, because if you were to put this onto a battery right now, the interior sponge, since it's completely dry, would burn. And that's obviously not something that we want. So what you're going to do is you're going to encourage that liquid to drag up into the sponge before you introduce any heat. The way you're going to do that is you're going to plug this bottom hole by just putting your finger over it, and then you're going to drag up through it, inhale not exhale, just kind of a small puff at a time, and you can release your finger between each one, too, and you'll see after each puff that there will be little bubbles that come out of that. Oh, let me find it there. Got a reflection. Little bubbles that come out of that intake hole, as basically what's happening is air on the inside of the dry sponge is being replaced by the e-liquid. So you want to see this in basically an entire half a tank worth of liquid disappear onto the interior before you put on onto a battery and introduce any heat, because that way you can ensure that it's going to be nice and soaked on the inside. If you face it towards yourself, like if you keep that hole right below your eyes, then you can kind of watch as the bubbles come out and make sure that it's happening. And if you don't see any bubbles, sometimes it helps to like tap it on a surface between each drag. My sponge was actually primed before, so I'm not getting any good bubbles out of it, but that's because the interior is already kind of moist. You kind of want to take your time when doing this too. Oh, there, I got some. Because if you do it too quickly, got too much reflection. If you do it too quickly, then the sponge on the inside can expand too quickly, and it can actually leak out that bottom hole. So if you ever notice that yours is leaking, out of this hole in particular, then that could be what's going on, is that the bottom part of the sponge has expanded too far. And that's actually how you also tell when their lifespan is over. Usually these last about 2 to 4 weeks for like a heavy user, probably closer to 2 to 3 weeks for someone who vapes a lot. But the way that you can tell that it's time to switch isn't so much that it burns out, but that it gets clogged. And the way that you can tell is if you hold it up to like a light bulb and look through it, and you don't see like a very obvious pin of light through the center, then it's probably time to switch it. And this bubble trick that you do to start it off is only the very first time that you prime the sponge. Basically, mine's already kind of saturated on the inside, so I'm not getting good bubbles to show you, but if you go through the steps at home, you'll see what I mean as you do it. So I'm just going to connect it to the battery and assume that, I've already got a good half a tank's worth of liquid down into the sponge. When you attach it to the battery, hold on to this part. This part can actually spin around this part, so you want to get a grip on that. And then just turn the battery to the point where it's barely got any tension against it. It's easy to get them stuck on there, so you just don't want to put too much pressure. Just barely any tension is fine for the contact. And then the way that you're going to refill it is if you hold onto your battery, you can actually drag that part up and again past the intake hole, and then just pop the drip tip off and run it down the side. And that way you can refill it, as needed. And the outside of the tank holds about 1.5 milliliters of liquid. The inside of the tank holds about 1.5 milliliters of liquid. So if you vape, if you're like a pack a day user, milliliter a day user, then you're probably going to fill it maybe once a little more often than, every day and a quarter. And that's it. You might notice when you inhale off of it that it makes kind of a crackling and popping noise, and that's actually just the sound of it doing its job. So it's not a bad sound. So don't be alarmed if you hear any of that. It just has to do with the oxygen escaping from the inside. So that's basically it. They're super awesome. They work really well. They're very convenient, and it's a nice, very throaty hit because it is a low resistance device, or I should say heating element. So hopefully you understand how to fill it now, and if you don't already have one, then stop on by. You can try one before you buy one. And yeah, thanks for checking it out.